With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Hey Marcus,
What?
let's play a little rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Oh yeah, you want to do this?
Let's go.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Nice, I won. All right, little ode to the running backs in Denver there. I'm going to start tonight's podcast. We're going to do a little bit of a review of last night's game, the 49ers and the Rams. What a shitter. As far as a Rams fan, we're going to preview the week 4. So, 49ers 35, Rams 11. Kaepernick, Marcus, 167. 2 touchdowns, no picks. I know he's on your team. Is he worrying you?
Yes, big time.
Yeah.
I am.
Your home team, I should say.
We know that he doesn't. Besides week 1, he doesn't throw the ball for a lot of yards. We already know this. You know, that 400-yard passing game was the first time in his career he's ever gone over 300 yards passing, let alone 400. This 160 to 200 yards passing is probably about what you expect of Kaepernick. Problem being is you're also expecting 40 to 60 yards rushing to kind of bring up his fantasy totals. So when he has a game like this where he only gets 3 carries for 11 yards, not what you expected fantasy-wise, I'm really getting worried about Kaepernick. You know, you kind of figure that with his rushing yards that he normally gets, that, he's going to have up and down games, but those down games are still going to be better than most people's average games because of those rushing yards. And right now with those down games, they're killers. They're making you lose weeks in your fantasy football leagues.
I think he definitely looked better last night. The biggest thing with him is the weapons that he has to throw to. I think there's just not much there. I mean, Bolden is certainly a great possession guy, but he's nobody that scares you as far as,
I was going to say, it's all Bolden and Davis. That's who he's looking for. Those are the only people he's targeting. That's his main 2 guys. I
think you're right in that 200-yard range for Cap. But if we look back to our preseason rankings, we probably both had him between the 7 to 10 range. And in today's NFL, the 7 to 10 range, you're expecting 15 to 18 points a game. So it's not like he's playing completely out of where we thought, but there was this preseason hype where you've seen what he's done. The hype was there where you thought maybe I'm going to get a guy that's going to be top 3.
Like I said, you wanted those 40 to 60 rushing yards.
Yeah.
That's where he's going to get the value for you. It just, it's nothing. That's what you were expecting. You were expecting the rushing touchdowns, the rushing yards. That postseason game that we all saw where he had over 100 yards rushing, things like that. Kind of like the Michael Vick that you're seeing this year.
Well, let me ask you this then. You've got him, like I said, in our home league. Is it something where you're looking to dump him, or are you going to maybe pick somebody up off the wire and see how this plays out a little more before you make some kind of decision here?
2 weeks ago, I talked about Alex Smith as kind of a good guy to pick up, good consistent guy that's going to get you, 200 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. And Alex Smith, a guy that so far this year is surprising people because he's been getting 30 to 40 yards rushing every week. So he's a guy that I'll probably be looking to pick up in leagues where I have Kaepernick. Because in a nice matchup like this against the Rams, you really expected a whole lot more.
Well, I think they got ahead so quickly, too, where it was, second half kind of took the foot off the pedal for sure. So you're saying, I'm going to pick someone up. We'll kind of let this play out a little bit, but you're starting to get very worried.
Yeah, I'm starting to get worried, but I would pick somebody up just to kind of back him up in case things kind of go back to the 4 and 6 point games that he had before. Hopefully what they did in this game by running the ball a lot with Frank Gore, it'll kind of open things up for him. So hopefully things kind of turn around. But if not, I want to have a solid guy on my bench that I can kind of turn to if it doesn't turn around quickly.
Yeah, speaking of Gore, 20 for 153 and a touchdown. I thought he looked great last night. And the thing that I really like about him, he's not the fastest guy. He's not the quickest. He's not the biggest. Certainly runs hard, but what he excels at is just waiting for those blockers to develop, waiting for that hold to develop. You see him with a hand on the back of the lineman. So many plays. It's just a patient guy, and he's still got it. I'm not worried about Gore at all. And I think last night kind of showed, look how they dominated both lines of scrimmage. Running the football is going to be the way that the 49ers win games, I think. So Gore is definitely a guy that I see good things to come.
Just real quick, too, on the Rams side of the ball. Richardson's been their guy, and in this game really didn't perform like you'd expect. 12 carries for 16 yards. Cunningham coming in and getting 4 carries for 6 yards. We knew Isaiah Peed was going to be out of this game, so if you have Zach Stacy, if you still are holding on to him for some reason, just go ahead and dump him. I mean, this would have been the game that he would have gotten work if there was ever going to be a game that he'd get work. So obviously that's just not happening. Didn't have a touch in this game. Not even sure if I'm sure he was probably active, but no touches. This would have been the game for him to get some work.
You said you knew Peed wasn't going to be there. This was actually news to me. I had no idea he wasn't going to be active.
It was announced inactive before the game for some reason.
Right, but do you know just the coach's decision from what I've heard, right?
I have no idea, to tell you the truth.
That's interesting. That's weird.
But continuing on the Rams side of the ball, Pettis tied with Cook with 9 targets. Just thought that was interesting, something to note. I think he's going to be the Rams receiver you want moving forward. So just keep an eye on him. If he's still on your waiver wire, I think you need to pick him up in all leagues.
Yeah, one thing I just want to mention, the announcers, Mike Mayock was mentioning that in the meeting they had with Bradford, he actually said that Pettis is the guy that he looks to. He didn't come out and say he's my favorite receiver when they asked him the question, but he did say, he's the one I'm most familiar with, the one I'm most confident in. He's going to catch the ball when I throw it. So Pettis, he might be the receiver to own there, even though Tavon Austin is clearly the one that everyone thinks.
All right, let's jump into some previewing of these Week 4 games. We've got a lot to go over, obviously. So first, Rams and Bills. Bills they're allowing 147 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs and 17 fantasy points. Ray Rice obviously coming back this week from injury. I think him and Bernard Pierce are both pretty much must-starts at this point. Rice definitely a start. Pierce very flex-worthy in this. They're allowing a lot of points to those running backs. But again, Bills also allowing a lot of yards through the air as well. I mean, Geno Smith just had over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. The receivers for the Jets last week had 287 yards and 2 touchdowns to wide receivers. So it kind of makes Torrey Smith a must-start as well. I mean, it's really just start all your Ravens against this terrible Bills defense.
Yeah, Torrey Smith, I think this is the week that touchdown happens. He's been consistent as far as the yards, the targets, the receptions. This is the week I think he gets in the end zone. He's had a pretty good season, and I think, like I said, touchdown this week, I would almost guarantee that, I think.
Yeah, and the other side of the ball here, just real quick, the Bills, E.J. Manuel has had 15 or more fantasy points in every game this year, so he's been very consistent for you. A lot of people have been looking to him to kind of spot start him this week, maybe for like an Aaron Rodgers or a Cam Newton that are on a bye week. I'm actually saying stay away from him this week because the Ravens have not allowed a passing touchdown since Peyton Manning lit them up for 7 touchdowns on that opening Thursday night game. So they've really just kind of, whatever happened after that Thursday night game, they've just buckled down and they are just not allowing those passing touchdowns anymore.
I'll tell you what happened. Peyton Manning hasn't been there to play against them.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just amazing that they haven't allowed a single passing touchdown in those last 2 weeks.
After 7 in 1 week, yeah.
So something obviously changed. Stay away from E.J. Manuel this week. Rookie quarterback. It won't look good for him. But Bengals, Browns, another thing really surprising here. A.J. Green has had 2 sub-50-yard games in a row. And now he's going to be shadowed by Joe Hayden. Are you worried about A.J. Green this week?
This week, I guess it's not the best matchup, but if you're more asking if I'm worried about A.J. Green, not at all. I'm not saying worried about him, but I'm saying this might be the type of game where he does finish with another under 50-yard receiving game. He might still get that touchdown to make him fantasy relevant, but it's something to think about. Joe Hayden is a shutdown cornerback. He is, but I don't care if Deion Sanders was in his prime and he was lined up again. A.J. Green is not a guy that I'm ever going to sit.
No, and I'm not suggesting that either. I'm just saying.
But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, Hayden is a stud for sure. Definitely not a matchup you want. You've seen 2 sub-50-yard games in a row. If he goes out and lays another stinker, it's a guy you got to go trade for, I think. A.J. is going to be just fine.
Cleveland's also allowing a rushing touchdown to a running back in each of the last 3 games. The 3 games, I guess, just to start the season. So, Giovanni or the law firm, which one of them do you think is going to get in the end zone this weekend?
I think it's certainly...
It's been Giovanni lately, but...
Well,
Ben Jarvis has been getting in there, too.
He got one last week, too, yeah. I guess I'll say Giovanni. The reason I say that is just because I think this is the week where it goes more to a 2-to-1 type split as far as the touches in the backfield. He looks like a stud out there. There's no question when you watch these games. I'll repeat myself again. He is just such a better football player than the law firm. So I'll go with Giovanni. I can definitely, the law firm's not going to be cast off for sure, but Giovanni 2-1, I think this week in touches, so I'll say him.
Yeah, Brown side of the ball here. The Bengals have not allowed over 50 receiving yards to a tight end this season. So it kind of brings me up on something here on Jordan Cameron. I'm going to name a few people, Matt, off. Zach Stacy, Tyler Eifert, and Mike Gillislee. Matt, what do they all have in common?
Zach Stacy, Tyler Eifert, and Mike Gillislee. What do they all have in common other than that they're all rookies?
Yeah, besides that. These are all people you picked. These are all people you drafted in our Dynasty League over Jordan Cameron this year.
Oh, that's terrible. What am I thinking?
Look at that list of people. Zach Stacy, Tyler Eifert, and Mike Gillislee you took in our Dynasty League rookie draft, over Jordan Cameron, who I picked up in the 3rd round. And I'm loving it, but this week it does make you a little nervous. Like I said, that the Bengals have not allowed a tight end over 50 receiving yards this year.
Yeah, but I don't know off the top of my head who the matchups were. Do you know who the Bengals played?
Not off the top of my head.
So Cameron is just so involved.
No Tyler Eifert, I can tell you that.
Cameron is so involved in this offense, and the fake fake field goal offense as well.
Oh, yeah, you got to play it on that every week. That's like in the
Minnesota. That play was amazing. Jordan Cameron, the most involved target in this freaking offense, is lined up wide on a field goal. What do you think's going to happen? Nobody even covered him. But enough about that.
Don't pay attention to him at all.
Enough about that. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. Yes, it's a little bit worrisome, but he's just so involved, and he is such a stud athlete. What linebacker is going to stop this guy? I'm not worried. I'm playing him. I'm starting him this week.
All right, you're still starting him. I think I have him as the number 2 tight end this week. But just, again, kind of like the A.J. Green thing, something to think about. These guys, very boom or bust, I think, this week. A.J. Green and Jordan Cameron, I think, are either going to have over 100 yards and a touchdown, or they're going to have under 40 yards. It's going to be one or the other. There's going to be no 80-yard game out of either of these guys. It's boom or bust for both of them.
Those 3 guys, Stacy, Eifert, and Gillislee, that I drafted over Cameron, combined, they probably have a good solid 10 points, right?
If that.
Oh, man, what a terrible decision.
Has Gillislee even seen the field yet?
No.
Really?
Unbelievable. What was I thinking?
Wow. Bears-Lions. This is 2 stout defenses playing against each other, so fantasy relevance is going to be hard in this game. A lot harder than I think most people think. The one thing I did pull out of this game is the Lions have allowed 4 rushing touchdowns in the 3 games this year, but have never allowed a 100-yard rusher. So that's telling me there's a chance that Forte may get a rushing touchdown, or it may go to Michael Bush, but there's no way Forte is getting a 100-yard game out of this game, especially not with his style of play. What do you think about Matt Forte this week?
Forte is going to be absolutely fine. The Lions, by no means, have a good defense. I know it's just a small sample size this year. Forte gets involved in so many ways too. It's not just even if they shut him down in the rushing game, he's going to have his passing, his receiving yards. The touchdown thing has obviously always been a concern with him. And this year, it's a much better situation for him. They're not.
Well, I don't know. They said they're going to go back to. They said they're going to go back to Michael Bush now again. And Bush did get a goal line carry last week and converted it for a touchdown.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say a lot of things.
He still got the goal line carry last week.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, the Lions this year, they played the Vikings, Arizona, and Washington. So, how good is their defense? I don't know if that's obvious yet. Those are some teams that have been struggling this year. I'm not worried about Forte at all against this team. They're going to have to score points. The Lions do that, so I think he's going to have just a fine day.
What about this? What about Reggie Bush this week? Coming back from injury, the Bears allowing just 75 rushing yards a game and holding opposing running backs to only 1 touchdown in the first 3 weeks. Are you worried about Reggie Bush coming back this week?
No, it's another situation just like Forte where he's so involved in the passing game that, or in the receiving game, I should say, that I'm not really worried about him either. The only thing is how healthy is he? I'm pretty sure he's pretty much good to go. But, Drake Bell's going to have some work there too. These running backs that get involved in the receiving game are a little less worrisome for me, versus guys like Alfred Morris who don't get involved. There's so many other ways to touch the football and get in space.
So I think in this game, you're right. Reggie Bush is going to have to be involved in the receiving game in order for him to be relevant in fantasy this week, because he's not going to get the ball. He's not going to get it rushing this year. Moving on though to the Giants-Chiefs game, we talked about it on our Tuesday podcast, Eli Manning was sacked 6 times in the first, I think, 16 and a half minutes of their game this week against the Panthers. He's been sacked 11 times this season, playing a Chiefs defense that has 15 sacks on the year. So they're getting 5 sacks a game. Are you worried about Eli Manning getting the ball off in time to his receivers, kind of like what happened last week?
Yeah, absolutely. Eli is a must-sit, I would say, this week. I'm pretty sure the Chiefs' D has the second most sacks in the year. 15 is an outstanding number, so even if it's not, second, that's awesome. And as you said, the biggest struggle with the Giants this year has been on that offensive line, keeping Eli off the ground and making space for their running backs. So I'm extremely worried about Eli this week, and pretty much any Giant you want to talk about. Cruz is his safety net, so he's the guy that, although we didn't see it last week when all this pressure is happening, and I could see some catches for him for sure, and Cruz is very capable of taking it, but I'm worried about the Giants in general. The Chiefs have a very good defense.
Yeah, very, very good defense. Chiefs side of the ball, though, Jamal Charles is second in running backs for fantasy points this year, despite not having a 100-yard rushing game yet. However, the Giants on the other side, though, are allowing over 100 yards a game to opposing running backs, and they've allowed 3 rushing touchdowns this year. Is this the week that Charles finally goes over 100 yards rushing? I think it is.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, and also another guy here who gets involved in so many ways. So even if he doesn't get that 100 yards rushing, like you said, hasn't had one yet, he's number 2 in fantasy. He's involved in this offense more than anybody, and the Giants' defense is certainly not one that puts any scare in my mind. So Charles is going to have a huge week this week, I think. I think 100 yards is almost a certainty as well.
Yeah, 100 yards and a touchdown, lock it up. Steelers, Vikings, Peterson just one game this year over 100 yards, where he hit exactly 100 yards. Steelers are 28th against opposing running backs this season. I mean, there's no newsflash there. You're starting Peterson, there's no question. Now, it's sounding like, Matt, maybe you know a little bit more. Is Castle definitely a starter this week?
Yeah, they
named him the starter. Okay.
Yep, Ponder's already been rolled out.
Just a couple of things real quick. We know how bad Matt Castle is. It's his first game coming in to be the quarterback for the Vikings. Steelers are the 5th best against opposing quarterbacks. You're not starting Matt Castle this week.
God, no.
You're not starting any of his receivers, I don't think.
No.
Just to say a little bit more about the Steelers defense, they're second best against opposing wide receivers too, so it kind of just says even more of what we're saying. You're not starting any of your Vikings except for Adrian Peterson, who could go nuts this weekend.
Yeah, so I was going to say, we do both.
Especially with the new quarterback in there, they could just feed him the ball 30 times this game.
Yeah, we do bold predictions on Fridays. We'll get to those later on. He was one that I wanted to make a bold prediction, but when you're talking Adrian Peterson, you can't. It's tough. So I left him out of it, but I expect a huge game from Adrian this week. He's in London. It's a big-time game. The Steelers actually treated this week like a normal week, like they were flying to Minnesota. So kind of interesting. They didn't get in there till Friday. The Vikings had been there for days prior to that, practicing out there and everything. So we'll see how the Steelers, how fresh they are, the time change and all that. It's going to be interesting. And Adrian, huge day. Other than that, don't touch a Viking, please.
Speaking of the Steelers side, though, here real quick, Roethlisberger obviously has looked terrible this year. Has had almost double the turnovers that he's had of passing touchdowns. He's had 7 turnovers, only 4 passing touchdowns. But the Vikings have allowed 8 passing touchdowns this year and at least 18 fantasy points to quarterbacks in each of their 3 games. Do you think this makes Roethlisberger like a sneaky top 12 play? I mean, look what they just gave up to Brian Hoyer last week. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Roethlisberger is going to have a big day. Spoiler alert, when we get into our
bold
predictions later on, one of the guys on the Steelers is in there that's going to be catching passes from Roethlisberger. I mean, I've watched every Vikings game intently.
You did everything there except name his name, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. So they're terrible. They don't cover anybody. I expect a big day from Roethlisberger. And like you said, 8 touchdowns allowed this year. They're leading the NFL in that regard. They're really struggling, and Ben's going to have a big day, I think.
Another defense that you're starting...
Well, one thing, too, we wanted to just bring up. Le'Veon Bell is starting this week. What do you think about him?
Not much.
Even against this Vikings defense?
No, not much.
I don't know. I'm almost...
I went back and looked at the Vikings numbers against running backs.
Yep.
And they gave up a ton of receiving yards to Reggie Bush, as we know.
Yep.
Gave up a lot more to Matt Forte the following week. But if you actually go back and look at it, not giving up very many rushing yards to opposing running backs. Le'Veon Bell is not the pass catcher that Matt Forte or Reggie Bush are.
Yeah.
I think, especially first game back, kind of still dealing with that injury, not really going to be a big factor. I think they're going to limit his touches, especially whereas next week they have a bye week. I think 10 touches for Le'Veon Bell for 40 yards. That's what I'm picking. 10 carries, 40 yards. That's it. Maybe one catch for 8 yards, but not enough to even think about in a flex play.
I think they're going to unleash him. He's going to have more 15 to 20 touches, but I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, I'd like to see it for a week. I mean, we've never seen the kid play other than at Michigan State, basically. He didn't get much preseason work, so I just want to bring that up because he's a guy that a lot of people were talking about in the preseason. He's finally coming back and making his debut.
Another quarterback getting his first start of the season, though, is Mike Glennon against the Cardinals. Cardinals are 30th against opposing quarterbacks, but you're still not starting Mike Glennon in this game. He's basically, the Cardinals are allowing over 300 yards passing this year, and they've allowed 7 touchdowns, but both Vincent Jackson and Mike Williams are questionable. I think they're both still going to play. Patrick Peterson's going to be on one of them, probably V-Jax the whole game. Again, I mean, rookie quarterback, first time starting. You're starting your Cardinals defense and probably, you're probably still starting V-Jax as long as he plays. Mike Williams, though, I think slips out of the flex play for me as well.
Yeah, the thing, I wish V-Jax was healthy because I think him and Glennon are going to be a very good tandem. Glennon's got a big arm. This kid can make any throw. He's huge. So is V-Jax. And honestly, V-Jax, what's he do best, right? He goes deep, he makes the big plays. So Glennon, I've always looked at it as if I'm a quarterback and I'm playing, who am I going to look to when I'm a young guy? I'm going to the stud that I have. I'm going to throw him the football as many times as I can. I see a very, very nice turnaround here. Not that he's having a bad season at all, but I think Vincent Jackson is going to be helped by the Mike Glennon factor, even though he is a rookie. And if it wasn't the fact that he was hurt this week, I would have had him quite a bit higher on my rankings. I got a feeling he's going to have a real nice season with Glennon.
Yeah. Cardinals side of the ball, 2 guys that I'm really worried about, the 2, I think, major parts of their offense. Excuse me. Larry Fitzgerald, who I had as a top 5 wide receiver going into the year. Obviously, he's going to be up on Revis Island. Revis is going to follow him all around the field. And even going into this game against Revis, he's only averaging 59 yards per game this year. And then Rashard Mendenhall, the other side of it, their running game, averaging just 52 yards per game rushing. He's the 22nd highest fantasy running back this year, but the Bucs haven't allowed a rushing touchdown all year. So, I mean, I think for Mendenhall to be considered even flex-worthy, he's got to kind of get that rushing touchdown because he's only been getting, 10 to 15 carries for about 60 yards. Like I said, averaging 59 for the year, 52 for the year, excuse me. He's just not quite getting the yardage, and if that touchdown's not going to come because the Bucs defense has been shutting people down around the goal line, then I can't. Both guys, I have a hard time this week. I mean, Fitzgerald, yes, you're starting him even though Revis is on him. Mendenhall, though, another guy I think drops out of flex consideration.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Larry Fitzgerald this week. Not excited about it for sure. Revis Island. Mendenhall, though, I agree with you completely. He's a guy I was touting all preseason, so it's hard for me to come down from that. But he's just, there's too much of a little bit of a running back by committee there. Obviously, he's the main guy, but other people are getting work. He's getting, very few third down opportunities. And like you said, the Bucs rushing defense, this is no fluke. I know it's only been 3 games, but they were great last year as well. This year they've backed it up now. They've signed a few people in the defensive backfield, Revis being one of them, that have really bolstered that side of the defensive ball too. So, yeah, Mendenhall I'm going to stay away from this week. I'm still not sold that he's done for the year. Fitzgerald, he's playing Revis, like I said, but you can't sit him. He's probably your best receiver. You can't sit him just because of a matchup. He's a great player. Carson Palmer can get him the ball. It's just a tough matchup this week. And if he has another bad game, go out and get him if you can. If an owner is stopping,
buy low on Fitzgerald. I still think he finishes the year as a top 5 wide receiver.
You mentioned 59 yards per game this year. You got to remember too. Week 2 he was hurt. During the game, I don't think
he's been banged up. He's been dealing with some injuries.
Came back this week 3. Larry's going to be fine, I think.
Colts Jaguars, Trent Richardson, we get to probably see the first full workload game for Trent this year in a Colts uniform. So far this year, averaging under 3 yards per carry, and I found this interesting. hasn't rushed for over 60 yards. Mind you, 60 yards. That's nowhere near anything. He hasn't rushed for over 60 yards since week 13 of last year. That's 7 straight games under 60 yards. But the Jags are allowing 5 yards per carry. They faced Charles, Run DMC, and Beast Mode Marshawn Lynch. But I think Trent Richardson is right there in that category of runners, kind of like the Marshawn Lynch type. And I think this is the game where not only does he break over 60 yards, but I think he might have a 100-yard game and a touchdown here. What do you think, Matt?
Oh, God, yeah. Bradshaw's already been ruled out because of the neck injury, which is a little bit worrisome. Same issue he had last year. This is going to be Trent Richardson 25 to 30 touches.
30 touches?
Yeah. Bradshaw's out. They want to run the football. They're going to win this game, clearly. And they're going to be ahead. They're going to be playing ahead. They're going to milk the clock, and Trent Richardson is just going to pound this defense to oblivion. And I think he's going to have a huge week. He was another guy I wanted to put in my bold predictions, but I had him last week. I couldn't go twice in a row.
Can't double
I think
dip.
he's going to have a huge, huge week. Like I said, Bradshaw's out. That was the only concern. It's his. Not that it wouldn't be his job, but this week it's his job completely. So yeah, 25 carries. I can see that. You don't think so?
No, I was going to say here's something to get excited about. Blaine Gabbert being back.
Woo.
Are you excited about that?
I can't wait. The best thing is his thumb okay? Can he stick his thumb up his ass yet? Because that's the only thing he can really do.
He can suck on his thumb, probably.
Yeah, probably
Sit on the
that
bench
as
and
well.
suck on his thumb.
He's terrible.
God, I mean...
But so is Henning, so who cares who their quarterback is?
Indy is great against the pass. You're staying away from all the Jacksonville wide receivers, except for maybe Cecil Shorts. Cecil Shorts leading the NFL right now in targets, so he's getting the... But if Shorts wasn't getting that type of workload, you're sitting him too. But you're not because he is getting that workload. Other side of the ball, though, Indianapolis has allowed a rushing touchdown in every game this year. So MJD, you're starting him. He's going to get a touchdown in this game. It's going to happen.
Yeah, we're hoping this is going to be the week that he comes back to form. The only problem I have, the only concern I have is I think the Colts are going to easily win this one, and that comes to the point where you're not running the football when you're down by a lot. So,
Yeah.
but MJD, this could be his coming out, I think.
Seahawks Texans. Andre Johnson is going to play this week despite his shin splints. I guess Richard Sherman typically lines up on the right side of the field, so he's not going to be shadowing Johnson, but obviously still going to be on him quite a bit this game. And they still have Browner and a couple other great DBs back there for the Seahawks. So I don't really like Hopkins this week either. Seahawks, the number 1 ranked defense, pass defense.
Wait, I missed this one. So Andre they have said he's going to play?
He is going to play.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't like either of them this week. He's banged up, and it's the Seahawks pass defense.
Yeah.
Those cornerbacks are amazing. And when Johnson's banged up, I can't see starting him.
Yep.
And then Hopkins has been great this year, but he's still a rookie matching up against some great cornerbacks. I would rather just stay away from that situation.
Yeah, I agree. Anytime you're playing the Seahawks pass defense, it's tough, and especially if you're talking. Andre's one of those guys. I'm a big player studs, but and honestly, I would play him if I've got him on my team because who do I have? But I'm extremely worried about him this week against that pass D, and considering that he's banged up.
Jets Titans. Chris Johnson's still kind of plugging along. No touchdowns yet. Hasn't broke 100 yards yet, but he's getting you, those 90 yards a game rushing. I think this week you're not going to see 100 yards either from him. Jets second best against opposing running backs. Speaking of running backs, though, the other side of the ball here with the Jets, Bilal Powell obviously going to get all the carries in this game, just like he did last week after Chris Ivory got hurt. And you can run on Tennessee. They've given up over 100 yards rushing to both San Diego and Houston this year. The only game they obviously didn't give up 100 yards rushing to was Pittsburgh. But, it's the Pittsburgh running backs. You give up 100 yards rushing to Ryan Matthews and company, that's pretty bad. You're starting Bilal Powell, I think, this week. What are your thoughts on Powell?
Yeah, Ivory out. You saw what he did last week. He actually looked good.
He got a huge workload last week, too.
As much shit as I've talked to him, he's a guy that you've kind of liked since he's been in the league, and I never saw it.
2 years ago, in a dynasty league, I traded a 4th-round rookie draft pick for him.
Yeah, and I never saw it, but this last week, he showed me some stuff. He really did. I liked what I saw out of him. Like I said, Ivory's out. Goodson's still not back yet. I expect a very good game out of Bilal Powell. And I ranked him, I think, 18th. I don't have him in front
Powell,
of me.
18th, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You're all in on him.
Why wouldn't you be? Like I said, the matchup you see, like you said, the matchup you see here.
Why
and
wouldn't
what
you
he
be?
did
Because
last
it's the
week.
Jets. That's why. Because it's the Jets.
Hey, Gino,
It's
he's
the
moving,
Jets.
moving the football. 521 yards of total offense
The
last
New
week.
York Football Jets. Ugh. So real quick here too, just to get into the Jets receivers. Tennessee has only allowed 5 receptions last week to San Diego to their wide receivers. I mean, I think out of Hill and Holmes, the guy you want to start is Hill because Holmes is banged up and has said he's still not 100%. But you're not starting either one of these guys, right?
Right, yeah, not yet, although they're both guys that I'm keeping a very close eye on.
Especially
I've
Hill,
said
especially
a few
Hill.
times.
Holmes is still banged up. I'm keeping we talked about this on Tuesday. Keeping an eye on Hill because he is going to blow up.
Yeah, I mean, he's leading the team in targets. He's had, 80 yards or more every game? Am I correct with that?
For Hill?
Yeah.
No, week 1 he had 36.
Oh, okay, and then number 2 was 86, and then
84,
last week was
or
108.
86, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just... I agree with you. I'm not starting him yet, but these are guys that I think could find their way into a lineup very soon. And if I see another big game from Hill this week with targets accompanied by that, I'm starting to become a believer.
I mean, the Titans secondary is good. They've been very, very good this year. So if you see a big game from Hill this week, you need to start starting him moving forward.
Yeah.
Eagles, Broncos, just real quick. Broncos are averaging 70 plays a game. Eagles are having 62 plays a game, which ironically, the teams they're playing against have been averaging 73 plays a game. So even though you think of the Eagles and their fast-paced offense, hurry-up offense, the opposing team is actually getting more plays per game than they are, which is amazing when you think about that. So I got to ask you, between the two, over or under 135 plays this week, both of them in their hurry-up offense.
It's going to be over.
It's
both,
crazy.
I mean, they're both doing it regardless. If the Eagles go 3 and out, here comes the Broncos to have their ridiculous pace of play. So
this game is going to have just so many plays.
It's going to be so exciting.
It's going to be nuts.
This is
one game I want to watch.
Yeah, this is the most exciting type of football I can watch. I'm excited for it, and I think both Vic, you're playing everybody in this one. And,
everybody.
Vic and Manning, I think, are going to have some big days here.
Yeah, speaking of Vic, just real quick, I mean, I know it's a lot of probably catch up when you're playing against the Broncos, but the Broncos have allowed over 300 yards passing to every team this year. That's Flacco, Eli, and Terrell Pryor. When you got people like Flacco and Terrell Pryor throwing 300 yards on you, Michael Vick's going to do it easy, no problem. LaShawn McCoy, the number 1 running back in fantasy. The Broncos are actually only allowing 30 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs and less than 2 yards per carry. You're starting McCoy. You're not getting cute with this at all. Again, kind of one of those things I wanted to mention because it's kind of like the A.J. Green thing. It's going to be boom or bust with him, I think, this week. Either he's going to go off for his 150 yards and a touchdown, or he could end up stinking up the joint, having 30, 40 yards rushing. Hopefully it's the former, not the latter, but we'll see.
The way he's looked, I don't know if there's any possibility of a bust. I mean, they just get him involved in other ways, too. If he's not running the football, like you saw week 2, with 50 yards rushing and 100-plus receiving, he's going to get his, and I'm not worried about him at all, regardless of...
No, you're still starting him. Like I said, one of those things I want to point out.
I still had him number 1 this week for fantasy, like I've had every week, every day, every week this year.
The other thing I just wanted to point out real quick, you're obviously starting all of your Broncos wide receivers in this game, but real quick, the Philly defense, aside from last week when they played against the Chiefs, the Eagles are allowing 40 points per week to opposing wide receivers. 40 points!
And they haven't even played the Broncos
yet. I mean, you're obviously already starting all your Broncos wide receivers, but if you play in those daily type of leagues, you need to think about Wes Welker and Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas because these guys are going to go off.
Yep.
I mean, this game, you could probably see Peyton Manning have another 7-touchdown game here. It's just, their cornerbacks and DBs there in Philly are just terrible.
Hey, before we move on, Julius Thomas, he's for real, right?
Yeah, I'm buying into it now.
Right.
I am buying into it. I wasn't at first, but now I am. And I'm buying into it more because it's Peyton Manning, not because it's Julius Thomas. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean...
Exactly, yeah, but I think this is the most athletically gifted player at the tight end position he's ever had.
Oh, over what? Dallas Clark?
Yes.
I mean, he's not athletically gifted, but I'm just saying...
That's what I said, athletically gifted. I think Peyton makes people a lot better, and when you get a guy that's...
Dallas Clark had great hands, though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, this is why
Peyton Manning makes anybody look good. We could be starting it. We could be the starting tight end, and he'd make us look good. But Raiders, the Redskins defense is just bad all the way around. It is just terrible. They're the only team in the league so far to allow over 1,000 passing yards. They're actually on pace right now to allow just under 5,700 yards passing. 5,700 yards. That is just complete nuts. No Terrell Pryor in this game. So, again, if you have Aaron Rodgers or you have Cam Newton and they're on your bye week and you are carrying them as your only quarterback on your team, I don't think I would have a problem with picking up and starting Matt Flynn in this game. What do you think, Matt?
This shocks me here. Are you positive he's already been called out? Latest I saw this evening even was that
if he hasn't been called out,
he's cleared for physical activity, but not yet declared starting.
He is going to be out. There's no way you suffer concussion like he did on Monday night and come back and play on Sunday. There is just absolutely no way.
I'm not picking. There's no way I'm picking up Matt Flynn.
No way.
First of all, listen.
This bad of a defense.
No, I'm not picking up Matt Flynn.
Wow.
And first of all, we need to. There is no. It's not that no Pryor in this game. It's not set yet. He's been cleared to play. I mean, he's been cleared medically to
let's just
do
say
physical activity.
Let's
so
say
he's not necessarily out yet. But if he is out,
let's say for argument that he's out.
Okay.
Matt Flynn, top 15 quarterback this week. I'm saying it right now.
Well, okay, top 15.
Top 15. That's nuts. He's a guy coming up off the bench. He's the backup quarterback for Oakland. That's saying something.
Yeah, I'm still not going to say it.
I'm saying it.
I'm not playing him.
Darren McFadden here, though, just real quick. Redskins also allowing 138 yards per game rushing to opposing running backs and over 5 yards per carry. So Darren McFadden, you're starting too. I think Raiders side of the ball, the Redskins are so bad, you're starting whoever the quarterback is, and you're starting Run DMC, and maybe even a Denarius Moore or somebody like that, because there's going to be a lot of bad defense from the Redskins. But speaking of defenses, aside from last week against the Broncos, the Raiders' run defense is only allowing under 7 points per game to opposing running backs. And that's combined all the running backs. You know what I'm saying? So if they're playing against the Eagles, right, that's McCoy and Brown together, not just one running back. So they're allowing under 7 points a game to all running backs of the team. That's amazing.
I mean, I said a few weeks ago, their defense actually looked a little better than people thought. We figured this team would go 0-16 almost, you know what I mean? So that's actually a stat I didn't know. That's interesting.
Really, I mean, again, aside from the game with the Broncos, because, hey, it's the Broncos, like,
right.
It's not really, you're not doing much to stop that train, but very, very stout run defense that I think people aren't realizing.
So are you? Does that really worry you with Morris? I mean, who do you think wins this game? Because that's a big factor in the Morris game.
We're going to talk about Morris a little bit later.
All right,
don't worry about it.
Move on.
All right,
move on. Spoiler alert.
Cowboys Chargers. Ryan Matthews has been so disappointing this year. I was big on Ryan Matthews this year, and the thing I like seeing is he's had at least 15 touches in every game this year, but is yet to break 80 total yards. I am really getting worried about Ryan Matthews. I normally have him as my flex guy, but I don't think I'm going to have him as my flex guy until I see his one breakout game.
I don't know if that breakout game's going to happen. I mean, we've been waiting for Ryan now for years. He's just, he's a solid player, and I think that's about it. I think that's what he is. The goal line carries are given to Ronnie Brown. I mean, they literally... They think he is better in that situation than Ryan Matthews. That says a lot about Ryan.
I think it's just because I think when I went back and watched that game, Ryan Matthews had a lot of the carries leading up to that goal line. So I think it may have just been, okay, he's had a bunch of carries leading up to it. Let's let him take a breather for a couple plays. It could have been something like that.
Yeah, I hear
I don't think it was necessarily because it was Ronnie Brown. Ronnie Brown, obviously, back in his heyday, did have a nose for the end zone, but I don't think that was the case, like Matthew Berry and them make you believe. But just Chargers defense side here, just last in fantasy points against opposing quarterbacks, allowing over 30 points per game to opposing wide receivers. Newsflash, you're starting Tony Romo and all of his receivers. You're starting Dez. You're probably starting Miles Austin if he plays. You're starting all of your Cowboys in this game.
I'd like to start Miles Austin, but not his hamstring. Is that possible?
I wish it was.
Damn.
I really wish it was. Patriots-Falcons on Sunday night here. Is Gronk back for this game? What are your thoughts? I think he is.
I think he's
he
back, but I
100%
said he was
is.
back last week, so what the hell are you asking me for?
Yeah, you're not exactly the expert over there, so we'll
Let's
let
just
that
wait
go.
till Sunday and figure it out.
So-
But what happens here, though, is say you have Gronk, right, on your roster. What are you going to do?
I'm playing.
It's a Sunday night game. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a Sunday night game. Now you're worried, or not worried, but say he doesn't play, right? Your Sunday 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games go.
You have two options here, I think. If you're going with Gronk, hoping he's going to play, and one is the one you've heard from a lot of people on Twitter and ESPN and everything like that, which is you have Gronk, you get Charles Clay.
Yep.
You play Charles Clay on Monday night if Gronk doesn't play. Option number 2, because I would hope Charles, if you've been listening to us, Charles Clay is off your waiver wire already.
Right.
So if you have Gronk and Charles is off your waiver wire, worst case scenario, Zach Sudfeld is going to be available. He hasn't done anything this year. Whoever picked up Sudfeld at the beginning of the year or drafted him has by now thrown him back to the waiver wire. It's better to pick him up and play him and get 2 or 3 points than get the big fat 0 if Gronk doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, I know I said last week he would, so I don't know how much you want to blame me on this, but I'm saying plan for Gronk playing. And
If for some reason I couldn't even get Sudfeld, if I had a tight end in the like outside of the top 12, and I had Gronk, I would put Gronk in there and risk taking the 0 over playing somebody outside of my top 12 tight ends.
yeah, I mean, even the case, it's tough to do that, but I think the upside of having Gronk playing is going to be just to know. The signs point, obviously this is a thing, it's a fluid situation. Really make sure you pay attention to this. Get on Twitter. Read the beat writers, make sure you make a very good decision on this. But I'm gonna say Gronk's playing, and if I've got him on my team and I don't have another option like a Charles Clay, I'm gonna roll the dice.
Now, looking at the defenses here real quick, I just wanted to throw out something, because when you think of the Falcons, you think they're going to throw the ball. And the Patriots, you think that too, but the Patriots really haven't been that way this year. So, just a couple numbers I wanted to throw about these defenses. The Falcons are allowing over 300 passing yards per game, so I think there's the chance that Brady could light it up, even with Kenbrell Tompkins and Aaron Dobson and Julian Edelman.
Yeah, we've
Hopefully
seen that start
Gronk.
to get a little bit better, it seems.
A little bit better. But then the flip side of this, for years it's been like bashed into our heads about how bad the Patriots secondary is. But so far this year, they're allowing just 200 passing yards per game and have not allowed a passing touchdown since week 1. So think about that. I mean, Patriots secondary, a lot better than you thought.
Well, I mean, I'm
not saying that this
talking-
year. I mean, Julio Jones is probably going to have his touchdown this
Yeah,
week. I'm not saying that
exactly.
by any means. I'm just saying better than you thought.
And one thing that I want, and I'll see if you agree with me on this, we're talking, we're 3 weeks in, so you can't really look at these numbers. A lot of it has to do with who they happen to play. You can't look at these numbers that defenses are putting up. Just the same way
They have, and to your point, they have played the Bills. They have played the Jets.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
but 200
weeks
yards
in,
is
3 weeks
something.
in is not a big enough sample for me. For the same reason why I'm not. If you're going to buy into this, then you're going to bench MJD tomorrow, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's 3 weeks in. It's not enough of a sample size yet to really say, hey, the Patriots have fixed their problems in the defensive backfield.
No,
I'm not worried about the Falcons. Like you said, Julio's going to get his. Matt Ryan's going to get his. I understand why you bring the point up, but I just want everyone to see what I think as far as, like, you can't look into the matchups just yet. If we're talking week 6, week 7, we're starting to see a better sample size. You can really start to look to those numbers, but
see, I bring these in here just because maybe we're going to catch the trends before you.
No, I agree. I
it's
hear
just
you.
again, like I was saying earlier, just things to kind of keep in the back of your mind. You're still starting all the guys you would normally start. Dolphins Saints on Monday night. Again, this is another one. When you think of the Saints, you think of a terrible defense. But the Saints' pass defense is actually 3rd best against opposing quarterbacks and 5th best against opposing wide receivers. So, I mean, we know Tannehill has been having a problem with Mike Wallace. Do you think Mike Wallace has a problem in this game?
This is actually one of those things we just talked about last game. Patriots Falcons don't pay attention to sample size. This is one where, hey, the Saints defense has looked a lot better, and there's a different philosophy there. Ryan's in town, bringing a lot of pressure. Wallace, I think, is going to be fine. Although I don't know. I think Tannehill's going to struggle with the pressure that the Saints are going to bring. I think Wallace is going to be okay, but I didn't rank him very high, so I'm not expecting a big game from him at all. I'm still not really sure what I think about him in this.
I'm really worried
offense.
I'm really worried about Wallace.
Yeah.
He has not looked good for Miami except for that one game, and he's a guy that I am really worried about in general. Not even in a bad matchup, but just in general, he's a guy that I would be worried about if you own him. Real quick too, I just wanted to point out, Daniel Thomas has actually outscored Lamar Miller this year in standard scoring leagues. Rest of the season, considering their value, which one would you rather have?
I want Miller. Thomas is, the touchdown guy, so we'll see how it plays out. I just think Miller's a better player, and it's early in the season. Not that I think Thomas is a bad player, actually. I know you watched this game on the rewind. He actually looked pretty good in the few opportunities he had. In the opportunities he had, he looked pretty good. But I like Miller. I think he's the guy I want the rest of the year, but it's not as exciting as people thought in the preseason, that's for sure. This is a timeshare.
Yeah, rest of the season, I'm just going with Daniel Thomas. Not all things equal, yes, I'm going with Lamar Miller, but I think Daniel Thomas, you can get at such a discount that it's kind of worth that. Like, the value is there that I would rather have Daniel Thomas for what I'd have to give up to get him. Saints side of the ball, you're starting all your Saints. Jimmy Graham is a friggin' beast. My God, he is... do you think he breaks Gronk's, I think it's 17 receiving touchdowns from a tight end? Do you think he breaks that this year?
No? I said last week he'd have 13 this year. I don't think so. 17 that's a huge number.
That's a lot. It is a lot.
I don't see that happening.
All right, let's get into our bold predictions here real quick, Matt. I'll run down my three here first real quick.
Damn! First, looking at the notes, you stealer.
I don't even know what your notes are, so there's no way I'm stealing them. If anything, you're looking at my notes and going, "Damn it, I'm jumping on that bandwagon."
I got them written down here too. I got proof.
Yeah, I don't see them. I'm not believing it. So real quick, I got Alfred Morris. I think is going to have less than 5 fantasy points this week. That is one of my bold predictions. I think he's going to have a tough time this week. Darren McFadden. We talked about this earlier. They're giving up 5 yards per carry. I think he's going to go off in this game and have over 20 fantasy points. Maybe even finish with 200 total yards. He is just going to go nuts, I think, this weekend.
Wow, and this next one is the serious bold prediction that I
This one's
hate.
serious. LaShawn McCoy will finish outside the top 20 for running backs this weekend.
You're nuts. Here's my 3.
I like that analysis. It's just, you're nuts.
Well, actually, I only got 2 this week. I think Heath Miller's going to have a good day. The Vikings...
they look for him a lot in the red zone.
Yeah, and that's what the Vikings are struggling with. The Vikings defense has let up... God damn it, I didn't write it down. They've let up a ton of... I know last week, too, to Cameron. Why did I not write this down? I thought I did.
And Joseph Fourier in week 1.
So, receiving touchdowns to tight ends in general, they've really struggled with them this year.
Offenses in general. Yeah. They've really struggled with.
But tight ends specifically. So Heath Miller, like you said, he's a huge red zone threat. He's coming back. He's back, and I think he's going to have 75 yards and a score this week. Not a huge game, but a guy coming off ACL, I think he's going to have a nice week. And then I've got, I guess to be unexciting for everyone out there, McFadden as well, but I guess that's a kind of a good point. I didn't say 20-plus fantasy points. I said that I think he's going to lead all running backs in scoring this week. I love the matchup, like we alluded to earlier.
That's basically saying more than 20, well over 20 fantasy points.
Well, the way running backs have looked this year.
That is true, too.
But, yeah, I didn't rank the 200 total yards thing like you did, but obviously I'm alluding to that type game. I think he's going to lead all fantasy points.
This could be his coming out party.
For running backs. Whether Pryor is there or not, I expect a big game for him today, this weekend.
So make sure, as always, to follow Matt and I on Twitter, me at Marcus Katkin, Matt at Matt Dugal, and keep sending your questions to #BlindsidePod or blindside@blindsidefootball.com. Matt, me, and Rob, obviously, who couldn't make it tonight. Obviously, we're live tweeting every Sunday from noon until kickoff of the 1 p.m. game, so make sure to keep sending your start-sit questions to #AskBlindside. We try our best to answer as many as we can, so just keep them coming. We try to help everybody out. So a couple questions we had for tonight real quick. Parker Nakin, at PNakin on Twitter, asks, should I trade Ryan Matthews and Cecil Shorts for Dwayne Bowe? What do you think, Matt?
No, I wouldn't do that.
You don't sound so sure about that.
I don't know how much difference I see in Shorts and Bo alone, so why give up
Shorts, Shorts I like just because the targets have been there.
Yeah.
Leading the NFL in targets, understandably they're going to go down once Justin Blackmon's back, but he's getting the workload. I like that a lot better than Dwayne Bowe's one catch for 4 yards last week.
Yeah, I mean Matthews, whether he's been good or not, he is a solid,
to be honest,
flex type guy, and somebody who gets a lot of touches. So
to be honest, I think if you were to make a trade something like this, I think Shorts for Bo is a trade you could make.
Yeah, or Matthews maybe.
Or Matthews for Bo. I don't think you need to put both of them in there. If you really are looking for Bo, I don't think you need to give up both to get him.
I agree.
Clay Elmore, at Clay Elmore 5 on Twitter asks, Cutler, Roethlisberger, Dalton, or Tannehill as his bye week fill-in for Rodgers this week. Which one are you picking?
I'm close with Cutler and Roethlisberger. I like both their matchups quite a bit. I think Roethlisberger can have a bigger day against that Vikings defense.
We talked about him earlier, about a sneaky top
I hope
12
I'm sticking
player.
with my rankings, which I don't have in front of me, but I'm going to say Roethlisberger over Cutler this week.
See, my rankings said Cutler over him, so I would go Cutler. These are the type of questions that when you guys get a chance, just jump on, check out our rankings online. That'll help you out with easy questions like these ones. So make sure you check out our rankings on blindsidefootball.com. Next question we got is Chris Hughes, at Chris_Hughes asks, needs a bye week tight end fill-in. Fleener, Zach Miller, or Scott Chandler? Which one are you taking?
Fleener.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fleener, I don't even know if Fleener's a bye week type guy. He's a guy that I think can be a tight end 1 for the rest of the season with Dwayne Allen out for the year.
Listen, the Jaguars last week gave up 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to the tight ends, to Zach Miller and company. If you're giving up 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to Zach Miller and other tight ends for the Seahawks that I can't even think of off the top of my head, then Fleener is going to go off in this game.
Yeah,
he could easily have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game.
That's why
I think it's Fleener.
That's why I included Miller in this, but that was a fluke.
It was a fluke for Zach Miller, yes.
Yeah,
but I'm saying I think Fleener could have that type of day. I think it's Fleener, and I think it's a no-brainer. So I mean that's all I got for this Friday episode. You got anything else before talking to everybody on Sunday?
No, that's it. I am extremely excited. I am a huge Vikings fan. I love to watch those, but I can't wait to watch this Denver and Eagles game.
That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to watch that one either.
Yeah.
Good game. All right, we'll talk to you guys on Sunday. Make sure to hit us up at #AskBlindside on Twitter, and we'll talk to you guys on Twitter.
See ya.
Yo, check it, it's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside, fantasy football podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron, Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned. On all quarterbacks, RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see, Some awesome people hosting Marcus Katkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining. Skinny or fat, short or tall, anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on iTunes or blindsidefootball.com too.